911 calls of crimes in progress, life-threatening, officers needed on scene with sirens blaring, are put at the top of the priority list. About 2,300 calls expected this year, more than double the amount from 2012. City of Tucson data shows an average response time of 5 minutes, reached 72% of the time. This is Union Leader Joby Dickinson.
If someone calls and it's a priority one call, there's imminent threat of bodily injury or death. We are getting to those calls. Now, are we getting to them as fast as I'd want us to? No, I think we could do better.
Critical 911 calls, when there's some danger present, swells dramatically to 43,700 calls a year on average. Response time goals, 10 minutes, is reached 60% of the time. But it's the response to the lower levels, urgent and general calls, that's receiving criticism. That amounts to nearly 161,000 or 78% of all 911 calls. Repeated 911 calls after 2 recent break-ins at Tucson Baptist Church fell into that general quality of life net. The church pastor, Brent Armstrong, tells KGUN 9 both response times exceeded 5 hours.
We called 911 and they said, thank you, you will be there as soon as possible.
Where the overall shortage issue really affects the community is the quality of life issues. You know, if your car gets stolen or somebody breaks into your house and steals items, the amount of resources that we have to put in those are nowhere near where I would expect them to be.
More than a decade ago, the union says TPD set a timeline for officers to respond within 60 minutes.
I can say that, you know, while it's not perfect, it's acceptable.
Now the timeline has moved to 120 minutes, 2 hours, and data shows that goal, on average, is reached 66% of the time.
Now you're having to wait 2 hours and we're not meeting that 2-hour goal. So how far are we missing it? That's unacceptable.
Effective leadership requires communication. And so if you're going to communicate, it's going to be 60 minutes, then it needs to be 60 minutes. If it's going to be 2 hours, then it needs to be 2 hours.
Police Chief Chris Magnus says TPD is meeting most demands.
Are these things ideal if your expectation is an officer for everything? I get it. They're not. Are they still good quality service when our goal is to have an officer that can continue to make it to those emergency calls within 5 minutes?
Magnus wants citizens to rely less on police for non-emergencies, so he's worked on or improved alternative solutions. Citizens can make appointments with officers at substations, or they can report non-emergency crimes online. That list includes collisions with no injuries, convenience store burglary, suspicious circumstances, theft, and trespassing.
So this is something that the community in general does not expect that. They expect to make a 911 call.
I appreciate that in any city in this country, if you call the police in an ideal world, it would be nice if within 30 seconds or 5 minutes or whatever it is, you could have an officer there. I get that. But the reality in almost every city is that choices have to be made based on the resources that are available.